Well, I see the trucker rebellion is still reverberating in Canada, as I mentioned in the monologue. They have abandoned, the federal Liberals have abandoned a plan to require vaccine mandates for truckers to travel from province to province. It was an absurd, unconstitutional plan to begin with, deeply punitive. That said, it would surely have been upheld by the courts. The reason it was thrown out could only be attributed to the political and popular success of the truckers. Well, that success is spreading. We've shown you how the truckers have inspired rebellions around the world, from Israel to the Netherlands. And for the past week or so, we have had a freelance reporter reporting on the U.S. trucking convoy that left California and is now closing in on Washington, D.C. We're joined live via Skype with Jeremy Loffredo, who is with the convoy in Hagerstown, Maryland, just a couple hours outside Washington, D.C. Jeremy, great to see you. It looks like good country. It looks a little warmer than the truckers in Canada. I was there myself. It was -20. It was very bitter. It looks like a nice spring morning where you are in Maryland.
It's beautiful here. Nice to be here, Ezra.
Well, tell me a little bit about your journey, because you've been embedded with these truckers for more than a week, I think. I mean, you start out in California. Give us some numbers. How many trucks are there? And the big rigs, but also, you know, people coming along for the ride for a day or something, maybe in their pickup truck or even a regular sedan. How many folks are there with you?
Sure. So we started off in California with around, not that many, 50 big rigs, maybe 50 RVs and a couple hundred SUVs or regular cars. And it grew and grew and grew every stop as we moved east. And now here we are, very close to the East Coast with over 400 big rigs, over 200 RVs, and thousands of civilian vehicles.
Wow. Those are impressive numbers. I mean, especially when you see a nice long convoy, it's really gorgeous to see. It's very inspirational. I don't know the actual number of big rigs that entered the city of Ottawa last month, but it doesn't actually take that many to create quite a spectacle and to create a focal point, because they're so glorious to behold, some of these rigs. And in Ottawa, they blocked that main street for a week or so. Of course, the horn honking. So if you say there's 400 big trucks now, that is quite a number. Do you know the plans yet? Because I think that in Canada, honestly, I don't think they really even had a plan. The plan was to go to Ottawa. Some people were trying to figure out like a manifesto. Some people were trying to figure out some sort of negotiation. But I think the trucking convoy was sort of the point in itself, just to join a movement. That's my summary of Canada. What's it like? What are they going to do when they get to Washington?
Sure. So there's been a lot of debate about that. You know, at their truck stops at night, they talk about that. There's a giant divide between the organizers and those that they have organized, the truckers. You have the organizers who are saying, you know, we're going to go around D.C., you know, we're not going to go into D.C. And then you have these truckers who hear that and are, you know, not happy with that plan. You know, they are here for a reason, and they're here to, you know, get the trucking, the cross-border mandate dropped, as well as with other freedoms that have been taken away during this COVID regime. And they're here for their families and their kids and their grandkids. And I talk to them every day, and, you know, they have brought their wives with them, and they've left their kids at home, and they are here for the long haul, they tell me. And if their truck gets towed, they have the money to take it out. And if they get tickets, they have the money to pay them. And they plan on staying in DC until something changes, until their voices are heard. And then you have the organizers who, you know, are a little more light-footed than that.
You know, one of the things I saw in Canada is at first, I think the official political establishment didn't really take the truckers seriously. So I don't think they had a response. But I think the whole world has observed, including the very heavy-handed policing tactics in Canada. One of the things they're still actually doing, believe it or not, in Canada, even though the truckers have sort of dispersed, is that the police are still blocking off key roads. Now, they've stopped that, believe it or not, to allow protests for the Ukraine-Russia war. But anytime there's a suspected trucker convoy, it's the police that literally seal off the roads. I'm in the city of Toronto, and they block off the entire downtown area preemptively. They just shut down the roads. I was trapped downtown Toronto a few weeks ago. It took me an hour to get home. And I wonder if Washington, D.C., which has a heavy-handed, it has many levels of police, they've already had fences and National Guard and things like that for over a year. I'm wondering if the grassroots truckers who have big plans to go to D.C., I'm wondering if they'll actually even be allowed to get into the city. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I have journalist friends in Washington who send me photos, and there are already Humvees parked on corners and parked at places where you pay tolls to get into Washington. The presence of the paramilitary police presence in Washington is overwhelming right now. Just because these truckers are planning to maybe park their cars somewhere around there, and even in New York City, a city that's over 200 miles away from Washington, not even a place that the truckers plan on going. Just in case the truckers do and end up getting to New York City somehow, they have a escalated police presence in New York as well.
Now, you mentioned Humvees. That's that American successor to the Jeep. It's like an armored, it's like a heavy-duty Jeep. It's military. Now, would that be National Guard? Is that, or do police forces have those? Because my question is, there's some you use the word paramilitary, and we saw some of that in Canada. We saw riot gear, we saw armored vehicles, but they were all, at least in name, directed by different police forces. When you say Humvees, I think military. I don't know enough about U.S. policing. Maybe that's the National Guard. How could a Humvee engage in policing? Like they don't know anything about issuing tickets or reading people their rights or how to arrest someone. They're not built for that. They're just built for battles, I guess.
Exactly. Those Humvees were built and are meant to go into conflict zones. And here they are driving around, our neighborhoods in preparation for these truckers to come in. And the National Guard has been deployed in Washington. And the Capitol Police, which is Washington's police force, they also have, a few, military equipment. They're using long guns right now. They're staying around with long guns instead of their normal pistols. So it's quite a scene there, from what I can tell.
Huh. You know what? It makes me nervous because, of course, in America, there's more of a gun culture than in Canada, and it wouldn't surprise me if a number of these truckers have a firearm in their vehicle, not in any aggressive way. It's just, I think it's probably legal in many states, if not everywhere, and I think it's culturally more normal there. It makes me nervous if you have peaceful protesters who have a firearm, but then you have an ultra-militarized police response, and I don't know. I'm worried that the kind of heavy-handed police, like there was no violence in Canada from the truckers, even when the police came in brutally. Like they literally shot one of our reporters, Ezra Levant, in the leg with a gun, like with a tear gas canister. It's shocking, but there was no pushback. Like the police went and they smashed in. Truck by truck, van by van, they smashed the windows, guns loaded and pointed, and extracted the truckers. And not a single trucker punched back, hit back, shot back. So the violence was all one-sided. But I think I know America enough that there's a little bit more of a don't tread on me vibe there. And if you have that kind of provocative policing in America, I'm worried that someone's going to defend himself. I don't know. I'm not saying I hope anything. It makes me nervous to hear that they're literally deploying military vehicles on the street.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of don't tread on me flags, which is essentially a flag that is supposed to tell the government not to tread on my rights, essentially. And every truck is flying with these flags. And these are people that generally support the police force. These are Republicans or conservatives, and they're totally against the idea of defunding the police, and they think the police are very important. But when I speak to them about how far are they willing to go, and you might have confrontations with the police, they are 100%. They're willing to confront the police if they think the police are acting illegally and not in line with the Constitution and are infringing upon their rights.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting. There's a different culture in America. I mean, your country
Definitely.
was born through revolution, our country through evolution. In fact, the losing side of the U.S. Revolution sort of all came north. We called them United Empire Loyalists, and they formed the political culture in the province of Ontario, which dominates Canada. By nature, we are more passive, and sometimes that's great and sometimes it's terrible. I mean, during the last 2 years, that passivity has been absolutely terrible, and it's allowed government tyranny to dominate. It'll be very interesting to see a replay of the trucker convoy phenomenon in a country with a little bit more freedom backbone. I think it's going to be fascinating. I thank you for traveling along with the truckers. I know it's been a long journey, and thanks for these updates that you're giving us. And stay safe and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Jeremy Loffredo in Maryland, a couple hours outside of Washington, D.C. Stay with us. More ahead. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.